Hey there, Cinemaster fans! Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. Our story. Acres 40 starts. We see a group of men with weapons sneaking into a farm and getting very happy because it's full of food, even though one of them is hesitant and afraid to go in. He tries to stop them by any means, as he feels there is danger. Unfortunately, it turns out to be a trap. The first one who enters the house is confronted by another person who kills him in seconds. A few minutes later, everyone outside is also killed, as if they were very easy prey. A big fight and chaos break out, and only a few manage to escape and hide in the cornfields amidst the darkness and cold air, which adds to the tension. Suddenly, a girl named Haley appears, chasing one of them and stabbing him with her sword, killing his friend at the same time with another weapon swiftly. Only one of them is left, and a boy named Emmanuel chases after him, determined to catch him no matter what. He does, and kills him easily. When he removes the mask from the person's face, he is shocked to find out it's a girl. He feels very sad and can't believe what happened. Afterwards, the whole family comes out and gathers around Emmanuel, trying to find out what he accomplished. His eyes are still full of tension. Koki's sister boasts that she killed someone, but her mother warns her not to waste bullets, since they are very rare and hard to find in these circumstances. Suddenly, the woman lying on the ground gets up. She's still alive. Everyone mocks Emmanuel for not even being able to finish her off, failing once again as usual. Sergeant Sergey starts assigning them tasks and gives each one something to do. He pressures Emmanuel to kill the girl in front of everyone. Emmanuel is very hesitant, but he picks up the gun and shoots as soon as Haley calls out to him sharply. After that, they all gather for dinner and start talking about their lives and the dangers they face every day. Haley tries to find out from Ryan what her report says, and we learn that every Monday she must submit a detailed report of everything that happens. Meanwhile, Emmanuel is not happy with anything that's going on and tells them their plan is too difficult, impossible to execute, and could cost them their lives. Haley tries to explain to him that their lives can't have any comfort, and that comfort will only come after they die. She asks him to go to Augusta again the next day to finish his task, even if it's full of risks. Ryan asks what her role will be so she can be prepared, and Haley is pleased that she always follows orders and never disobeys. She decides Ryan must go with Emmanuel on this mission and warns him not to talk to any strangers at all, emphasizing that everyone outside is evil and could kill him in seconds without him even noticing. The next day, he wakes up very early and starts exercising to energize himself. They tend to their crops together and patrol the area to make sure they are completely safe. This is a routine they do every day without laziness. Haley trains them in shooting, farming, and anything that can help them survive in these very harsh conditions. She constantly communicates with the farmers around them in the area via radio and talks to Costa, who asks her for help, telling her there are many raids on them and the Union Army isn't helping or supporting them at all. But she refuses, saying she can't risk her life for them. They joke a bit about their strange lives and the constant pressure, but try to relieve themselves with laughter. At night, Emmanuel has a strange dream full of symbols. Afterwards, he quietly watches his horse, prepares himself, and gets ready for his new mission. He reaches an abandoned factory and trades some spices with the people there in exchange for supplies, making sure not to stay long. As soon as he's done, he quickly returns home, as if afraid someone might follow him. Meanwhile, Haley listens to news from the surrounding farmers as usual and discusses the current situation with them. She's shocked when Costa tells her that Jim and his family died and that a group of cannibals killed them all brutally. She is unable to process what happened, and her expression changes completely. The sergeant goes out for a walk in the forest and notices a wrecked four-wheel drive car on the ground, surrounded by lots of spices. He is happy to find them and quickly gathers them before anyone else comes. He returns home and gives Ryan a new shiny pistol. Koki is surprised where he got all these things from, and he refuses to tell her anything, as if he's hiding a big secret. When Haley enters, she tells him about the disaster that happened to Jim. He says it was very expected, and that people are starting to turn into animals and will soon finish each other off without mercy. Haley starts to worry a lot about Emmanuel, but the man reassures her, saying he's a brave and strong young man who can handle anything. At that time, Emmanuel decides to go to the sea to clear his mind. By chance, he sees a girl from afar standing alone and is fascinated by her, noticing her from the first moment. Out of curiosity, he quietly follows her and discovers she lives in a shelter full of children who look scared and hungry. That night, they hold a big party to announce that Dance has grown up and can now be a soldier like them and participate in everything. They burn some herbs and perform strange rituals in an atmosphere full of excitement. While the girls dance around the fire, the sergeant and Haley sit together watching them from afar. Haley starts talking about her life before the world collapsed, how she was still young and dreamed of a normal future before all this was lost. Emmanuel returns home, and the sergeant gets very upset with him and argues because he came back late. Emmanuel tries to justify himself, but the sergeant refuses his excuse and tells him not to do it again, blaming him for not even attending his sister's party, calling it disrespectful. Haley continues the argument with him, warning him about the world and people, telling him their lives are always in danger and they must be careful with every step before they move, so that they can be completely safe. She asks all the girls to go inside immediately, immediately. She also asks Emmanuel to put out the fire before they go to sleep. He dreams, just like every day, and he wonders why he always sees Hallie, his mother, in his dream, as if she's looking at him from afar. The next day, he goes about his routine as usual. Nothing changes. He goes swimming again in the lake and decides to draw the girl he saw yesterday because he liked her a lot and can't get her out of his mind. When he returns home, he keeps thinking about her all night and can't sleep. Hallie comes in and tells him that the sergeant and Dance will go with him tomorrow on his patrol. Of course, he gets upset and objects at first, trying to refuse, but she insists and reminds him of their agreement and that his ancestors tried to protect this land. It is his duty to protect it too and fight for his family, even if it means pushing himself and taking risks. She warns him one last time to improve his behavior and attitude with them. Then she leaves, letting him think about what she said. The next morning, he actually goes with the sergeant and Dance to an abandoned warehouse in the middle of the forest. Meanwhile, Hallie is talking to the girls at home, telling them how she met the sergeant for the first time. At that moment, Ryan asks her if there are any girls her age living outside. Hallie stays completely silent, not knowing how to respond. Then she is forced to lie and says that no one else lives their kind of life, and if anyone saw them, they would be surprised that they formed a family under these circumstances. That is their secret, which must not be revealed. We return to the sergeant and his group. Dance sees blood on the ground and keeps following its trail step by step. At the same time, the sergeant and Emmanuel are confronted by 4 armed men who attack them, claiming to be Union soldiers who have come to help and protect the farmers. Of course, the sergeant doesn't believe them for a second and opens fire on them, finishing them off with Emmanuel in seconds. Afterwards, he quickly searches the bodies while Dance keeps following the blood trail until she finds a strange woman sitting on the ground. Unfortunately, she shoots her without any thought or hesitation. The sergeant and Emmanuel hear the gunshot and run quickly because they are very worried about her. They take her and return to the farm as soon as they see her injury. The whole farm is in chaos over her, and they try to save her any way they can, performing surgery with whatever resources they have. Luckily, she survives after all that. Emmanuel feels very sad and guilty because he was the reason. If he hadn't insisted on searching the bodies, he could have saved his sister from everything that happened and avoided this huge disaster. Ryan keeps talking to him, comforting him, convincing him that he is a very good brother who always tries to protect and care for his sister, and that he shouldn't blame himself for everything that happens around the farm. When things calm down a bit, Hallie tries to contact Costa by radio to tell her everything that happened, but unfortunately, the signal is very bad and she can't finish the call. Emmanuel goes outside to smoke a cigarette and suddenly hears a strange sound around the fence. He takes his weapon and searches the area cautiously, shocked to see the same girl he saw before at the lake standing in front of him, injured, her body full of bruises and wounds. She begs him to help her as she is on the verge of collapse. Out of fear, he threatens her, not knowing what to do until she leaves and disappears into the darkness. The next day, Hallie and the sergeant gather all the children and talk to them, warning them that there is a large group of cannibals and that they must be extra careful in the coming period. They stress that these savages could appear at any time, pretending to be normal people until they trap and kill them, just like what happened before. The sergeant starts assigning new tasks to everyone and asks each person to stick to the plan exactly. Before Emmanuel leaves, Hallie talks to him and asks him to be stronger and stop blaming himself, because he always needs to think about how to protect his family and keep them safe from death. Then he goes to the barn with his weapon and finds the girl tied up there. He learns her name is Dua and tries to calm her down, asking her not to make any noise so that no one sees or knows she is there. At the same time, Hallie hears movement outside, gets worried about Cookie, and starts looking for her in a panic. She quickly calls Emmanuel, telling him to come immediately because Cookie is missing and they must find her before anything happens to her. He has to tie up Dan again and leave her. When they gather for dinner at night, Ryan gives the report as usual, and Cookie behaves strangely for reasons no one understands. They joke around a bit to ease the tension, but Hallie yells at Emmanuel as usual, blaming him until everyone goes to their rooms. In the middle of the night, Hallie goes to check on Dan, sits with her while she's asleep, telling her how much she misses and loves her and wants her to get better and stand on her feet again. Emmanuel goes to talk to Dan, trying to find out who she is, why she came here, and how she even found the place. But she refuses to answer anything, acts harshly, and asks him why he is keeping her here in the first place. He tries to calm her down as usual. When she asks to use the radio, he hesitates, afraid of the consequences. She tries to explain that she's worried about her family and people, and just wants to know if any of them are alive. He feels sorry for her and decides to untie her hands, apologizing for everything he did. He tells her about the danger around them and that many enemies attack the farm from time to time, which is why they suspect any stranger. Dan insists on using the radio and promises to leave right after, and that he'll never see her again. When he refuses, Dan mentions a family called Freeman, and he is shocked to learn that Costa is her aunt. At that moment, he starts to trust her more than ever before. At the same time, Hallie sits anxiously by the radio, waiting for any call from Costa to check on the situation. Emmanuel gets closer to Dan, telling her about the day he saw her at the lake and how he liked her a lot from the first first time he saw her. He discovers that she also saw him and liked him that same day, and that she even followed him once. She goes to the lake often, just to see him. They spend a long time talking about their lives and secrets as if they've known each other for years. The next morning, Hallie is surprised that Emmanuel is not in his room and starts looking for him everywhere until she reaches the barn. There, she is shocked by what she sees, and the sergeant stands silently with her, not knowing what to do. As soon as Dan sees them, Hallie hits her, and the sergeant drags her outside by force. Of course, Hallie screams in Emmanuel's face, blames him severely, and locks him in the barn in anger. She and the sergeant stand threatening Dan with weapons, demanding that she tell them everything in detail, who she is and why she came here. The girl begins to explain her name, family, and that she came here by chance. There is a voice, but no one believes it at all. Hallie puts more pressure on her and shoots next to her until the girl confesses that Costa is her aunt and that she was also the one who sent her here. We go back in time a little to find out how Hallie met Costa. One day, her car broke down on the road, and Costa was the one who stopped and helped her fix it. By coincidence, they discover that Costa knows Hallie's father very well, and they talk a lot and share details of their lives. In the end, Costa herself takes her to the farm, and there they discover that everyone living there is dead. Hallie finds her father lying on the ground, dying. When she asks him about Emmanuel, we learn that he is really her son, and her father was hiding him on the farm to protect him. She goes in and finds him sitting on the ground holding a weapon. She tries to calm him down and hugs him, promising him that he is not alone and that she will protect him from any danger. In the present, Emmanuel tries to contact Costa by radio to come and rescue Dua, and finally, the call succeeds, but there is no response. Suddenly, Hallie enters, cuts the line, and a new fight starts between them. This time, Ryan sides with Emmanuel and says they should hand the girl over to her aunt instead of hurting her, but Hallie strongly refuses and says that if Costa really loved her brother's daughter, she would have come to rescue her herself. Emmanuel blames her for not trusting anyone and says this is dangerous and that he is tired of her controlling his life. When she tries to stop him from leaving, he pushes her and walks out. As soon as he leaves, he screams at the top of his lungs out of sadness and frustration. He takes Dan and escapes before anyone notices. Hallie decides to go after him no matter what, despite the sergeant's warning that she might be walking into a trap. After a while, Dan and Emmanuel arrive at the place where she used to live with her family, but they find it deserted and completely empty. At that moment, fear begins to creep into their hearts. Meanwhile, the sergeant discovers that one of the cameras outside has stopped working, so he goes out of the fence to fix it, not realizing he is walking into a trap. Hallie reaches the place where she expected to find her son, but is shocked when she enters and sees barrels full of human bones. This scene makes her boil with anger and immediately realize her son is in real danger and she cannot decide what to do. At the same moment, Emmanuel, while searching the area, discovers that all this was just a trap and that her whole family is hostages. She was forced to do all this to save them and had no choice but to lure them to this place. She reveals to him that the people who kidnapped them were waiting for this moment to attack the farm, take everything in it, and eliminate him and his family forever. Suddenly, someone comes up behind Hallie, attacks her, and beats her until she loses consciousness. At the same time, the sergeant also falls into the trap and is subjected to a brutal attack. Ryan and Cookie see what is happening on the camera screens and are terrified. Ryan asks Cookie to stay where she is, takes a weapon, and quietly leaves for a safe place, trying to fight back. She calls the sergeant on the walkie-talkie, but when he does not answer, her heart sinks. When the sergeant regains consciousness, he finds himself lying on the ground with both hands nailed down with huge spikes in a brutal way, and the enemy is preparing to eat him alive. He gathers all his strength, stands up with difficulty, hits one of them with the nail in his hand, finishes off the second with his other hand, and continues to fight, covered in blood. At the same time, Hallie wakes up and finds herself lying in a dark place with Costa tied up next to her, looking completely exhausted. Ryan succeeds in taking down a large number of enemies, but discovers they are more numerous and fiercer than she imagined. Eventually, the sergeant manages to contact her with a broken voice on the walkie-talkie and tries to calm her, telling her he will take control of the situation. Costa tells Hallie everything that happened in detail and assures her that Dan is not to blame, that they forced her to do this and she was terrified, and that when she arrived at the farm she was afraid Hallie would kill her immediately. Hallie explains to her that Emmanuel was the one who saved Dan and hid her all this time. Before they can finish their conversation, a strange man enters, apparently the leader of the place, and starts harassing Hallie, telling her she is different from the other farmers he has seen. Her response is to spit in his face defiantly, telling him she is not afraid of anyone. This provokes him even more, and he orders his men to tie her her legs. Without any mercy, he kills the rest of the prisoners with her, even Costa herself. Hallie manages to escape amid the chaos and reaches the shelter with Emmanuel. There, she introduces him to the children, apologizes for everything that happened, and asks him to help her in any way until he promises her he will find his aunt. At that moment, the thugs enter the farm, and Ryan cannot stop them. So she quickly runs and hides in the basement, trying to control her breathing. Meanwhile, Hallie tries to use all her strength and resist the man trying to tie her legs. In a swift move, she steals his weapon at the right moment, knowing this is her only chance to turn the tables. Suddenly, the leader enters and tries to convince her not to shoot, falsely promising to release her whole family without touching any of them. But she does not believe a word and, with cold determination, kills him brutally, convinced she is the only one who can resolve this situation. On the other side, Ryan reaches the sergeant's location and finds him gathering all the weapons he could find. He orders her to stay with Cookie and not move an inch. He takes the weapons and goes alone to the second floor. Emmanuel finally reaches Hallie's location, and they reconcile after a long conflict. Now all their focus is on how to protect the family from annihilation. At that moment, the sergeant asks Ryan to activate the fire alarm and turn off all the lights around her so he can trap the thugs in one place and finish them off. The plan succeeds, and he kills them all at once. As soon as he is sure they are safe, he asks her to turn the lights back on. Hallie prepares to take her son and leave. On the way, they meet Dan, but when she asks about her aunt, she is shocked by the bitter truth that they are all dead. Emmanuel insists on taking her and the children with him, and his mother finally agrees. At the farm, the sergeant takes Dan and gathers everyone on the ground floor, trying to protect themselves with the simplest means. But at the fence, Emmanuel feels something is wrong, and anxiety eats at him. He and his mother try to decide what to do. Suddenly, Ryan sees on the camera two of the thugs preparing to set the farm on fire, so she and the sergeant trap them in a deadly ambush. Hallie and her son clash with the rest of the gang outside. The battle is bloody and very difficult, but they succeed in entering the farm with the children. Inside, they find two armed men holding their weapons to Dan's neck. The sergeant takes advantage of the opportunity and finishes them off in moments. But then, a third armed man appears, and Ryan, with quick reflexes, stands in his way and shoots him before no one touches anyone after the clash. Rain checks on the sergeant, whose condition is very bad, and assures him that the three of them are fine. Emmanuel takes the children inside, and when Rain sees him, she is happy that he is okay. But her anger explodes because of the strangers he brought, and she also blames him for being the cause of this whole disaster. The boy can't stand her words and runs to continue the fight and help his mother outside. The tragedy continues, and Hallie runs out of ammunition. One of the gang stabs her with a knife, and her injury is very serious. But Emmanuel arrives at the critical moment, saves her, hugs her, and also apologizes for all his mistakes. Luckily, she and the sergeant come out of this war alive. After days of horror and blood, they go back to living together in peace, returning to their daily routine as if trying to bury everything that happened deep in their memories. And here, the events of our movie today come to an end. Stay tuned for new videos and summaries. Goodbye.